Hello, everyone. Giselle here. I'm going to be speaking with my friend Refugio Mata today. And I see you, Refugio. So I'm just going to wait here a few seconds before he hops on. How is everyone feeling? Hi, Amanda. Oh, so good to see you here. I know you see me, but I don't see you. And I love you. All right, just a few seconds here. Oh, look at that. Hi,
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. 'Cause I
Hmm,
never know with these things.
I know. No, we've got loud and clear. I don't know, Amanda, is everything okay? Um, yeah, it looks like we can, everything is looking good. Well, hello
Cool.
everyone again. I want to welcome my dear, dear brother who I have known. We met probably, I think, in like 2004. I believe. That's when I started going to CSUN full time. We were both anthropology majors, and we met actually in a Mesoamerican uh, archaeology class. Our
Was that
teacher's
the first
name.
one? I
Well,
forget, like,
that's the one that
actually.
for sure I know we connected because we sat next to each
Uh,
other, and during the breaks we totally geeked out and talked about anthropology. And
Anthropology nerds.
total anthropology nerds. I mean, that's where we really bonded. It was our teacher's, our professor's name was Professor Love.
Mm-hmm.
And so to introduce you to, my community and the broader Instagram audience, whoever watches this is Refugio Mata. He is a beautiful, beautiful soul who is an Aztec dancer. He is a host of the podcast Camino Stories, and he's a communications consultant, and he's a wonderful human. I've gotten just blessed to know him all these years and to keep this friendship alive since college. So welcome, Refugio. So happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite. Um,
Mm.
it's uh, yeah, thanks for the invite to Instagram Live because I'm actually thinking of doing one of these in the near future with two of my past guests that were on the podcast. So, and I've been putting it off, and because I just never do one, these, and so okay, perfect timing to do to experiment.
Awesome. Yeah, I've been doing them weekly, and one thing I've always felt is like I have access to incredible humans in the course of my 50 years of being alive on this beautiful planet. I've met really incredible people, and so this just started as I'm doing this with my friends, and so as people go through my Instagram, IG lives, you can see how diverse my friends are. They're just across the board so many different people from different lineages and have like just really incredible interests in what they do in the world. And so this started as wanting to share my friends with the world and what they're doing. So it's fun. It's been really, really fun to have these conversations and to have them recorded and transmitted. And, if anything that's shared here resonates, I mean, that's what this is about, right? It's just connecting with, each other and sharing with others.
Hmm. Yeah, right on, for sure.
How you doing, girl? Who's that? Dennis? I like that. How you doing, girl? So yeah, so let's dive in because it's actually been a while since even Refugio and I have definitely seen each other. We do live in the same city.
A year maybe, over a year
Yeah,
and a half maybe, to the
yes.
pandemic. Yeah.
So how have you been navigating these times?
Uh, well, like everybody, I am tired of being inside like everybody else. So I'm trying to be more intentional around like getting to enjoy the things that I put off from enjoying. And I'm super frustrated at people that don't get the vaccine. I just have, I guess, a personal, because it's like we all want to get like to the quick, right? To the like what a normal, whatever that is. But yeah, I'm trying to like not think about it too much. It'll be what it is. So, but other than that, yeah, I've just been focusing on doing projects that I've been wanting to do for a while, either whether it's drawing or the podcast that I started, or just writing, and exercising, just whatever I can to keep, grounded and being able to, yeah, just continue to make the best of it, like everybody else. Yeah.
I hear that. And yeah, I think definitely all those things, nature, going outside, and our personal practices for sure have also supported me during this time and still continue because, yeah, we're still in it. We're still very
Hmm.
much in it.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted to also talk about, well, a couple of things. Well, I would love to talk about Camino stories and how that came to be. And yeah, if you can give us some background on that, it'd be great.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a pod. I have two episodes, so it's been slow. It's been slowly going. It's a labor of love. It's definitely a project that had been on my to do for a very long time, and I just kept on putting it off, and it actually came about from conversations I would have with friends that are in activism spaces. Because sometimes I found myself like talking about like the work or like what thing that we were angry about or I was angry about at that, moment. Like, oh, isn't it terrible that like, you know, um, I don't know, healthcare and like, climate change and this and that and city council, did this and the politician this other thing, and sometimes I just felt like I wasn't I think I came to a point where I realized that while those conversations, of course, they're incredibly important, they didn't really allow for personal connection to even get to know my friends on a
Mm.
personal level. Like I didn't know, for example, where did they grow up? What were their parents like? What are their dreams? What are their frustrations? Do they have like a moment of challenges that they run into in their lives? And I just wanted to, I just had this moment of like, why don't I would love to connect with my friends and on that level. Uh, and then just like drop that pretenses of like, because sometimes like, especially, well, not especially, that's really everywhere, but like, sometimes we lead with our resumes when we're talking to each other, like, oh, here's my, how I'm capable and how I am an expert in this, or like I know this and that, and again, it's so ingrained in us in the world that we live in, and there's a reason why. Obviously, it's functional, but that I just got tired of just defining or seeing people just through a lens of their jobs, and realizing that we're more than our jobs, much,
Mm.
much more. And so I had this idea actually over. I started to see how I would have the best times when I would have like a few drinks and then like talk, with activist friends, and then like some of those pretend almost, well, I call them pretenses, like they would just drop, like the cards will drop, and we would just have like honest conversations with each other, or at least that's how like I wanted to have the conversations. I seem to find myself always in that spot where like I wanted to connect on a human level, and
Mm.
I would have like these amazing conversations, and I thought, what if I were able to record this? Oh, because this is the other thing that happened as well. Part of those conversations, sometimes I would find myself thinking through or sharing how, like, let's say we start to talk about something that was really bothering us, or like we were just going through a rough time, and either because of depression or because of past trauma or like some really just some things that you usually don't talk about in a normal or like in a regular conversation, right? And then we would get to like and maybe talk about like how are we dealing with that? Like what are the things that we're doing to address them, to try to heal, from them. And it was I would find those conversations so unique because they would often be missing. They wouldn't, I would never hear this conversation in activism spaces, and for all the social justice work and all the other slogans. Sometimes I wouldn't hear more talk about like what did you do to heal yourself, to take care of yourself, which is actually a very radical act of self-love. It's an incredibly important topic. So, anyways, so some of these things would like come surface through the conversations, and I almost wish that I could share that with others, that with
Mm-hmm.
others outside of like the two people that were having that interaction. And so that's where the idea of having some kind of conversation like that and recording it and sharing it for posterity and to share with others came from. And but it was forever that I had it on my mind and I just never got around to it. And then the pandemic happened, and maybe that was also served as a catalyst, at least for me, to explore what are the things that I can do to I don't know, just get to doing the things that I said I was going to do or I wanted to do that were deep
Mm-hmm.
and meaningful for me. So Camino Stories, yeah, was a project that came from that, and like I said, I recorded a couple episodes. I recorded one last year, and I just recorded one this year. So it's
Yay!
almost like an annual podcast. So it's slowly, slowly going. I'm learning. I don't know. I didn't know the first thing of it. I have a
Yeah.
coworker that started to do podcasts as well, and started to learn how to edit, and I just look up things, and I'm sort of navigating my way through audio editing, and it's a fun
Mm.
project. So yeah, but I'm
And
hoping to do more episodes of that.
it's so great, right? Just to like meet our edge, for sure doing these videos have been for me meeting my edge and I didn't start this particular series to do that. Well, actually that's not true. I did. I had started doing these videos for my community online for Cross Pollinate, and then I started doing them here, and I just wanted to keep that going, keep meeting my edge in the space of, and alive is like, yeah, there's no editing. We're just going for it, whatever is being put out there, and not getting so caught up in being perfect or
Mm,
saying all the right things and being scripted, which is definitely not who I am. And I think, so much of what's out there is so perfectly marketed, like, um, and I
hmm
value this space where we're just being, very authentic, and I may say things, wrong things, or, I'm human. And I want to honor that in other people too. It's just like, it's okay if we don't say exactly the right thing. And there have been times, and thankfully I've gotten to that place post these, videos where I don't go through everything. I may sometimes be like, oh, I could have said this, or I could have said that, or but it's kind of like more of a side note, and not
mm,
a criticism, and I think that's where I wanted to get to that place, because there was a time in my life where I couldn't even look at myself on video because I was so critical and judgmental. So it's great to be here now and to be in this space where I'm just doing these weekly lives and it feels safe because I'm doing them with friends, and I know other people are watching them, but I don't really feel that in this moment. In this moment, I'm just having this conversation with you, um, and it feels easy. So that's a win, right?
hmm
In my mind, and they don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to make money off them or what. They don't. There's so much I'm getting out of this experience already
hmm
that I don't need to, you know, make it something that it's not. It's really amazing to share ourselves in these platforms that we get to do in social media, and it can touch
hmm
people, and something we say or can resonate with someone, and that feels good.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love that. And what you said about being authentic and just like not trying to say the right thing, because that's the thing that I wanted to move away from with the what I was referencing with the conversations that I was having, and because it often, in the activism spaces, and it's not very different from corporate spaces, believe it or not, but like it's very like you're presenting this like professional, like forward face, like, oh, I'm the expert on like this. I know my shit, like I know, like you're trying to like project this, air of expertise that like the metric tons of like pollution, and carbon dioxide, and you're being evaluated and judged by like how much technical things if you work in that space, or if you speak the right lingo, or like if you speak like even nowadays, there's it's so great to hear or to see the growth in us, in all of us as a community, on a variety of issues, from racial justice to oppression, systemic oppression, and different things. But there's also a catch-22 with that as well, in that, it's almost like if you don't speak the lingo, or like if you're not like already a far advance, like it's very hard to catch up, because the conversations are not conducive to being open enough for people, to allow for people to grow, right? And to discern obviously intentions, and where people are at, because, of course, I'm not gonna waste my time with somebody that's like so far gone, that's like it would be a waste of my energy. But in terms of like engaging people that I really value, or like I think there's a value there for engaging, and having more of a human connection, and for room to grow, and to allow for that imperfection. I find that to be, yeah, just that appeals to me. And yeah, just to go back to yeah, what you were saying with, yeah, not being perfect, and so I wanted to capture that authenticity more in the podcast, in the Camino stories, and saying like I wanted to make it a conversation. I wanted to make it not an interview kind of a thing, where like I ask questions, like it's like I have some questions prepared, but it's more of a, you say something, like it'll, like remind me of something, and I can share, and then sort of like we're bouncing off of each other on a topic. And also saying like it doesn't really matter to me like whether it goes viral or not. Like I'm doing it more like, I was thinking the other day, and my motivation, because I don't think I would, if I were approaching it that way, I would lose interest, I think, really quick. Because then it would become a job, and also just if you subscribe to like the Myers-Briggs personality, and like the zodiac sign and things like that. So like both of those are like kind of pointing to me like how my part of my personality is like, I need to do something that's meaningful. Like that's the most important thing. It can have other added benefits, but like it needs to mean something. And for me, like the podcast has been almost like I'm recording like a love letter of sorts to my friendship and my relationship with the people that I'm talking to. And I hope that, and I have this vision of like, hopefully, when I'm not on this earth, and we're not on this earth anymore, even that could exist for, for the future, for people to take a look at and see like, oh, that's like what they were in time. And, and those were like they were the real emotions, like the real person, as opposed to like this manufacture, like putting, I don't know, these masks and pretenses that didn't really capture the essence of the person. And so yeah, so totally, I'm right there with you.
Sorry, there's a bunch of kids. Thank you for sharing all that. I actually was muting myself because there's a bunch of kids. I'm at my friend's house and they are like playing hide and
I was gonna
seek,
ask
and
you, where are you at? Yeah.
they're screaming and they're
Mm.
like giggling. I mean, it's amazing. Actually, I love hearing their joy, but I had myself on mute just so that you wouldn't hear it. And they actually just walked in the room right now and they wanted to use this room as a room where they could hide.
Mm. Yeah, your
um,
room looks very colorful. Like I didn't recognize it
It's
at
not my
first.
room. Actually, I'm in my
Yeah.
friend's room. She's got a blue wall. I know it's beautiful. But I wanted
I
to
want to
just,
pay. Yeah, I was
yeah.
sorry. I was like, I love the color, because like it reminds me of my house in Mexico,
And I
and we're
love
like
you got
thinking.
blue right behind you as well. So this is
Yeah.
amazing. Blue is our thing. So blue is like the throat chakra, right? So it's this ability to
Uh,
express,
oh
to
wow.
share our authentic selves. So this is great colors that we've got going on right now to
Oh wow.
activate the throat chakra.
See, like this is basically my our conversations every time.
I know, I know. Actually, one of the things I love about our relationship is like we could go to so many different places in topics, and yeah, I just love our depth that we share in our like this beautiful friendship that we've had for so long. I did want to ask because for people who are watching, because you've alluded to your activism work, do you want to share a little bit about what the work that you've been doing?
Yeah. I've been doing activism work for now over 15 or 17 years. And it's, funny because, you meet people that have been doing it for longer, like 30, 40, 50 years. So it's not like everything is relative. That's what I found, and sometimes it doesn't mean much. It only means what you make of it to yourself. And I think for me, so to give background before I jump into how that's evolved. So I started as a community organizer in Ventura County, doing work for a labor union. And then from there, I moved to LA and I did work for a nonprofit organization called Heal the Bay, doing I was a volunteer coordinator and was almost minimum wage kind of a job, but I loved the experience and then from there I had a second job in the same organization as a community organizer again, and from there. Well, that community organizer took me to South LA. So I did a lot of work in Southeast LA, in Watts and Compton. And my job was to organize around opening up green spaces in these communities and engaging the community to come together and develop and search for resources that could uh, yield or yeah could help us develop a park that could have multi functions of like communities coming together to enjoy the park, but also things that you could have to capture the runoff from the runoff pollution that often happens in urban areas to catch it before it goes into the ocean. So and then from there, I did communications for SEIU for the labor issues, workers issues. I did a couple of stints with them, and then also did work with Sierra Club. So, anyways, on and on and on. Like again, my resume of like what as a like my expertise. My expertise, I guess you could say, is community organizer, and I switched to communications. So I've been doing communications for over a decade now, engaging reporters and doing work on online marketing and all of it to support nonprofits, especially nonprofits that are doing work for social justice communities or social justice organizations, environmental justice, especially in yeah communities that are low income, communities of color, and so it's been a long journey, and so I and then to talk more about like the evolution of that. I think uh, what I saw and experienced in that journey is that in the beginning it was super exciting because it really spoke to my desire to help and to do something to change the world, and to you see so many injustices, and that kind of actually came up, started to get woken up a little, quite a bit during our anthropology, courses because we got to study a lot of the, realities of the world and how worldviews impact policy and how human beings treat each other and human nature. And so it was fascinating, but I knew I wanted to do more than just study it. I knew that I wanted to do something that like I want to change things. I don't want to know just what's wrong with things. I want to like know how to change it, right? And um, for quite a while, I that drove me, and but then I started to notice that it was such a demanding job, and all jobs are demanding, really, to be honest. But every job has its own different, unique style of it, and the nonprofit world certainly does. And so, a lot of people talk about burnout and things like that. And yeah, I definitely started to experience that. And I think as I was reflecting about why that is, I think part of it was that there was a lot of anger that I was tapping into because of the anger at injustice. And I think I started to realize that a lot of people around me were doing the same thing. And unfortunately, when you tap into that energy, while it is really good to get people moving, to hit the streets and, and get their anger out and just, scream at what's wrong with the world, and there's a place for that and a purpose. Uh, However, what the part that I found missing from that experience is that nobody really talked about, like, okay, what happens after you release that anger or like you tap into that anger. You're kind of like, okay, we're done, and like you kind of just go back to your home or whatever, and you're like, you don't know where the anger came from. Sometimes, like that anger could be projections of your own inner traumas that are not necessarily tied to the issue. Like they have connection to the issue, perhaps, but they're
But they're
some
being
often.
triggered by the issue.
Exactly, you're being triggered, yeah. And
Hmm.
that usually means that something that happened in your family that you haven't really revisited, you haven't really healed from, or from your surroundings, your immediate surroundings, and nobody talks about that.
Yeah,
Let alone like be given tools to, like, hey, here's the resources where you can go talk to a therapist or like talk to, somebody that can
totally.
do healing.
There's such a martyrdom that exists in the nonprofit world. I was briefly in it too, and it's this like idea like, oh, I'm doing good work for the world, and so I have to suffer in it. And there's like this unconscious, belief just in everyone. Oh, I have to work really hard. I have to get paid very little. I can't put my needs out, on the table because this other person's needs are much greater than mine. And there's layers and layers and layers, as I'm sure you know. And then it turned like, if it's then you've got ethnicities kind of in there. Like, oh, if I'm a white person working in a brown community, then I even have less of a voice. I mean, there's again so many more layers that just continually show up in the nonprofit world, and which I feel like, yeah, those people need so much support, so much more support than the um, the structure of the system has in place.
Yeah, and it's a complex picture. I mean, we're complex individuals and human beings. There is the systemic, like, you know, white supremacy system that sort of it kind of devours all of us, um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
always is demanding, things from us,
Yes.
all the anger, all the whatever. So there's that, but it's not just that. It's also there are things that are much deeper that that's the part that uh, people don't talk about as much that have to do with your family unit experience, with the people that surround you, with your experiences
Mm-hmm.
growing up. And so, yes, of course, they are both interconnected, intertwined, and along with other dynamics that are factors as well. But
Mm-hmm.
especially that deeper, exploration of the self is an area that is not, yeah, it's not looked at. And so, because and as you as you explore this, you realize that that's much harder. If there's a reason probably why, it's because that's much harder to do. It's easier to look at the outside and see the things that are wrong with the world, which are very much wrong, but that's easier to do than look inside,
Mm-hmm.
and just cast everything as like, well, those are the evil people and I'm the good people, or vice versa. Maybe you be yourself over, like I'm the evil per everybody's better than me, and I'm the one that's
Mm-hmm.
like, something wrong with me. So there's different permutations of that, um, and so exploring, having the capacity to explore this, can be, if you tap into that energy, then it can be a different energy from the energy of anger. that can be more
Mhm.
sustainable when you are engaging in work, in especially in activism spaces. So I think
Yes.
that's the biggest thing that I've been trying to connect more to from the moments that I started to realize that is that how do I move from using anger and like other types of energy to fuel my
Mhm.
activism? How do I tap into a different energy that's more uplifting and while at this, retaining that sense of urgency, but also being powerful and being more long lasting and transcending, that can facilitate liberation, really liberation for myself and for my community, and to know that it's
Mhm.
not going to be like a thing that happens like a goal. Like it doesn't happen. It doesn't like our lives don't work like that. Like it's a lifelong journey, and that's why I
Yes, it
call it Camino
is.
Stories, my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a lifelong journey, and yeah, I've actually heard that today. I was listening to your podcast with Martine, the therapist,
Mm,
and I that stuck out about Camino Stories being about like this ongoing journey. And but one thing, you're going back to the burnout, all this stuff that happens in the nonprofit world and in so many different industries, obviously. But I love having witnessed your evolution, how, because I've witnessed it, because I've known you for so long, and you've gone from this journey of deep self exploration and with yoga and with exercise, and then becoming an Aztec dancer, which I love. And I've been so blessed to see Refugio perform, and I got to meet his community. They are so beautiful, like just truly, really a wonderful, wonderful community that he gets to dance with and learn from and teach, right? So I think like diving into all of that, like just to see how well it's supporting you, right? Navigating all these spaces. I don't know if you want to speak at all about becoming an Aztec dancer or anything that's supported you in that way.
yeah, for sure. And I think, well, that is an example of spaces and communities uh, that I've tried to. Before that, before these communities, like I didn't have anything. It was just like work and maybe school and go to home and sleep, and eat and get fat, get like, just and because I wasn't even exercising. I think I started exercising because the doctor told me that I had high cholesterol, and
Mm,
I just noticed all the weight that I was gaining, and but it's all connected, and so. Yeah, as the dancer, it's in some ways it felt like it was meant to be. I my great grandmother was an Aztec dancer in Mexico, and I shared this story with you where before I even knew that I wanted to become an Aztec dancer, I used to in this picture came to me uh, of a dancer dancing around the fire, and it had like the feathers and it had the silhouette, so it looked like some kind of an indigenous dancer, and it just appealed to me so much. I was like, oh man, like I don't. It just appealed to me. Like I didn't think like I want to be like that. I just like immediately I was like drawn, and and then one day I was like, I think I want to become an Aztec dancer, but I don't know where to start and my cousin Peter, my cousin-in-law, I found out that he had been a gymnastic dancer for a few years, but I lost touch with him, and and somebody told me one of our relatives, so I reached out and he connected me to the group that he was with, and it was almost like it was just waiting there for me. Like I didn't know where to start, and as soon as I somehow things came together that I wanted to become one. It's just a pathway sort of opened up for me to plug into that. And um, yeah, and I think the more that I've uh, you explore this kind of, I don't know what you call it, but certainly you and I have had we had conversations about this where things just kind of open up and they just present themselves. That's when you start to orient yourself. And the more
Mm.
that I've explored, these questions, the more that that seems to repeat. It's a theme that I hear over and over again in other spaces. So,
Mm.
through Aztec dancing, actually, I discovered that I had another deep desire for spirituality, and the leader of the Aztec dance group that I am with, he's very spiritual. He both from a Catholic faith, but also from an indigenous perspective. And I know that can be controversial, or sometimes it's viewed as like opposites or conflicting. But again, it's a complicated world and it's a complicated history. And but to me, I have such a deep respect for him. He's certainly been a guide, a mentor, and a teacher. And uh, I never thought that I would have a person like that that would play that role in my life, or that I needed that person. And it seemed like one thing led to the other. And through that, it's just been a deeper, deeper experience, and where other things have manifested, from just exploration to the point where now there was another group that appeared in my life, which is the Toltec wisdom, path of wisdom. I forget the specific name. They have this leader, um, that also has different groups and walks us through some of the teachings of the world and the cosmology of Toltec wisdom. And it's fascinating, and it kind of reminds me of like my anthropology days, where like we just have this innate desire and curiosity to explore many different worldviews. And so we can, I don't know, it's just I don't even know how to explain it, just in our nature. And I'm talking about you and I, and I think there's not a coincidence that we're like that, wired like that. But that has led to other groups that I've been connecting to, and not just Aztec dancing, but also therapy spaces.
Mhm.
And maybe I can talk about therapy later. But like, yeah, just it's not just the Aztec dancing, but it's like you're saying, just the finding the things that make you, um, bring you joy, and so that you can tap into that humanity of yourself, and connect to others people's humanities. Because yeah, the bottom line is that it just seems like, once you realize that most interactions are the way they're so superficial, and they're more like, it's almost like we're all wearing masks, right? Like we want to like we're projecting even like things of ourselves into other people. So it can get complex, but essentially, like it seems like everybody's floating, they're not really like in their bodies, they're not really like present to be like, here I am, this is like the real me, all let it hang out, kind of a thing. So that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And the kids are really, really screaming right now. So, oh, and I'm actually but not going to be able to stay on for too long.
Yeah.
Um, so, just because it's going to be too distracting in a very short bit. But I this conversation is such a beautiful conversation, and particularly about like how we can navigate all the internal things that we are experiencing. And I think this time of the pandemic has amplified for everyone, just what's this having the quietness and having less distractions to actually go inward more. And it's a really intense space to
Mm.
be, particularly with what we're experiencing externally. Obviously now we have a pandemic, and then there's Afghanistan, and there's fires, and there's floods, and I mean it's just ongoing, the human suffering, and even the human suffering that exists within our own communities, that we get to see every day. I live in Los Angeles. There's a lot of homelessness. So there's so much that we're navigating in these spaces, and I feel like one of the beautiful gifts that I've received, it has been my spiritual path, has been, doing the inner work. And we won't get into it too much, I guess, but like the therapy, all of it, all the resources, the yoga, the breath work, the meditation, again, the ability to pray and to connect to nature. So all of those have been such incredible tools for myself, and I know for you too, Refugio, and for so many out there. So I feel like I almost feel like it's like people can't hear it enough, even, that these things do work and they do support you. They support you in much more sustainable ways than a pill ever could, or
Hmm.
any quick fix thing that we want to
Yep.
gravitate towards, or distraction. It's like this work is deep, and it's not comfortable, it's not easy by any means, but it's such a beautiful practice, really, that we get to then bring into our jobs and into our communities and into so many different spaces. And because it starts here, right? It starts within us, whatever world view we have, it really is just a reflection of, the view we have internally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what jumped at me when you said that was the word prayer. And that's I think one of the biggest pieces that I um, it seems it definitely lost in the people in our communities and because prayer can sometimes have such a stigma of repression and because you associate it with like repressive, dogma and all kinds of, just parroting, just repeating things, right, without much of a connection. And it's not the prayer itself that's the problem. The problem is that because there is you don't you don't develop a connection to the words and also to the acts of prayer. It's not so much like what you say. um, it's a vehicle, of course, but it's your intention and your ability to. It's another form of meditation basically. And it's such a. I think that's for me. Going back to your original question, how are you doing, or like what are you doing in the pandemic and all that stuff? I think I forgot to say like prayer was like number one. It's number
Mm-hmm.
one, and especially during all the times, just to start the day with prayer and what for me that usually looks like sometimes I pray the rosary. Even I pray the rosary. I do offerings, tobacco offerings to Creator, just to practice gratitude, which by the way is also in meditation, mindful meditation. Gratitude is a huge and very important thing to do to ground yourself, to reorient yourself in where you focus your attention and your energies, because at the end of the day, you are useless in trying to help people if you are not grounded. If you're not, one of my Toltec wisdom group leader talks about how it's you have to practice how to be a mountain, how to be the mountain in the storm. And of course, it's a dynamic. Sometimes the storm is good, and sometimes you shouldn't be the mountain all the time because the mountain also like hardens and like you should also have fluidity. But being able to having the practice and at least of how to be that mountain and in the middle of the storms can be super helpful for the people around you, because that's another powerful way that you can be of service to your community. Because if you are frazzled, if you are not grounded, if you are consumed by anger and hurt, and then you even want to hurt other people, even if you may not realize though that could be subconsciously, then really you're not used to your community. You can't really help anybody. So in order to help others, have to start with yourself. It's not a mutually exclusive thing, of course, but it really starts with yourself, and prayer is such a healing vehicle in order to do that.
Mm. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, unless you feel there's anything else you want to say in closing. um,
No, I think we've completed the circle of healing. We've been healing from the spiral.
Spiral circle healing.
Yeah.
Uh, thank you,
Well,
Refugio. It was so awesome to see your face. I haven't actually seen your face in a little while either. And to hear your voice and your heart. And Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
And
likewise. Yeah, I love you too. Love you too, love.
yeah, this is
Nice
so
seeing you.
good, so juicy to have these beautiful friendships and yeah,
Hmm.
support each other along the way.
For sure.
All right, well, be
Well,
well.
you too. Have a good
And
rest
thank you
of the night.
everyone for watching.
Yep. See you soon.
Bye.